Hello, friends, and welcome to Weekly Witness, Texas Impact's weekly podcast designed to help mainstream Texans of faith understand the legislative process and help you engage with public policy in the great state of Texas. My name is Scott Atnip, your host and Texas Impact's Director of Public Witness. And y'all, by the time you hear this, early voting will have either already started or will soon be kicking off. It is getting real. So it seems like the perfect week to hear some stories from some congregations who've been doing some incredible civic engagement work this election season and hear some of their stories. Last week, you heard from Texas Impact's Houston Faith Votes Project Manager, Rebecca McIlwain. And this week, we'll hear from three leaders from her cohort of congregations doing civic engagement work as we welcome Mattie Thomas, a member of Missouri City Church of Christ, working with Bridges to Empowerment, Cathy Reinhold, area missioner of the Galveston Convocation of the Episcopal Diocese of Texas, working with St. Augustine of Hippo Episcopal Church, and Juanita Jackson of Trinity East United Methodist Church. Shout out to their pastor, Reverend Marilyn White. These groups have been intentional about having conversations and reaching out to populations that are typically less likely to vote, which has been a theme around Texas Impact this week. As B wrote a block in our weekly e-news about having conversations with people who she might disagree with and hearing them out. In a heightened election season, we have a tendency to retreat to our camps of like-minded people. But my prayer is that in the coming weeks, we work to build bridges and have conversations with folks who might disagree with us. And also, or maybe especially, people who might be checked out this election season. Who are the people in your life or in your community or congregation who might be less likely to participate in the process? Have a conversation with them. Invite them to join you at the polls. We believe democracy works best when the whole of the community is participating. So I hope we'll all spend some intentional time this week making some calls, sending some texts, and inviting people to join us in this work. Make your plans and invite others to join you. I've said it here the last couple of weeks that I'm inviting my crew to vote together on Tuesday, October 22nd. I'll be bringing breakfast tacos. And then I saw in one of the Texas Impact messaging apps, one of my colleagues posted that the Austin office should all get together and eat tacos and vote together too. Y'all, this should be fun. Plan something and invite your friends and family to the party. I look forward to hearing how you're engaging your networks to participate. As always, Texas Impact has some great tools to engage folks on our website at texasimpact.org. I've been saying it for weeks, but I'll say it again. The Texas Faith Votes tools are incredible. But for now, I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation with members of the Houston Faith Votes cohort. Joining us for the conversation today is one of my new friends, Mattie Thomas, who's a member of Missouri City Church of Christ and is in this Houston Faith Votes cohort, also in a partnership with Bridges to Empowerment. So Mattie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me today. Thank you.
I'm excited to talk to you. We were talking before we started recording today about the incredible work that you all are doing. So why don't you talk to us about what you're doing to involve your congregation and your community in civic engagement work and why you chose this particular project?
Okay, well, thank you for asking that question. What we're doing right now, before we could even get started, I had to go to the elders of our church and to talk to them to see if this was something that they would be interested in. And me doing voters registration drive with the church, getting out in the community, putting door hangers out with the Texas Impact Houston Faith Vote QR code on the back of it, and also doing a little public outreach for our church as well. And after many conversations with the elders, because they want to know how this would impact our church and and how it would be with the Christian part of this. And after many conversations, they were on board 100%. So we did make those Texas Impact made the QR code for us, and we printed them up with the Bridges to Empowerment logo, Texas Impact, and that QR code for people to see if they're registered to vote. Also, just make a commitment to vote. But on the flip side, as I was sharing earlier, we have our church logo, information about our church. So it did double fold because we have lots of new communities popping up around our church. So this is what we did. And I was also able to bring other Church of Christ in there, not just Missouri City Church of Christ, but I was able to bring the Sugarland Church of Christ in, and also Pearland West Church of Christ. And they did the same thing as well after speaking to the elders.
Why was it so important for you that your congregation participate in the civic engagement, this voter turnout work?
Because as I talk to people, a lot of people believe that we as Christians just sit in the church and we say God is going to take care of everything, and I believe that too. I believe He will. But I also believe that God wants us to do our due diligence as well, to get out there to do what's best for us as individuals, not just sit in the church and, say He's going to take care of it, but He gave us the ability and the wherewithal to get out and witness and show that, yes, we do want to make an impact in what happens in our community, how we are affected by city and state and federal government.
I bet you have some stories. So you've been going out and hanging door flyers. You've been inviting people to participate in the process. Any fun stories or any anecdotes you can share from those experiences?
Oh, yes. So, I've putting those door hangers out has been interesting because I've met all kind of people, and I have to tell them that I'm nonpartisan. I do care, how they vote, but doing this, I'm nonpartisan. And I've heard stories of how people, what they believe and so forth. And I just listen. I've learned to listen and keep my opinion to myself. That was very hard to do, but I've learned to do that. Listening to people say that it's going to be what it is, and they really don't care. I'm like, we should care. I had one young lady to tell me she was on the fence, and I asked her why was she on the fence, and I'm looking at her, and I'm looking at her baby, and she's in her mid to late 30s, and to say she's on the fence. So we had a conversation about that, and I asked her was she registered to vote. She told me she was. However, as we continued to talk, I'm like, I don't think so. Would you be willing to make a commitment to vote? And she says, no, not right now. And I've had lots of conversations just like that with young people. Hopefully, with the conversations, put something on their hearts to know the importance of getting out there, because as I told them, no vote is a vote.
It's interesting that you say that because I actually just finished reading the draft of Texas Impact's e-news that's going out this week, and it talks about having conversations even with people that we disagree with. And so when you're block walking, when you're encouraging people to participate in the election, you can talk to all kinds of folks from all kinds of backgrounds. So I think it is important for people of faith and for congregations to be involved in those conversations, to listen to what our community is saying. And so that's a really interesting story. Thanks for sharing that. I guess before we close out this piece of the conversation today, you've got a bunch of listeners who are probably inspired by the work that you're doing. I know it's a short amount of time until this election, but there's civic engagement work that will go on forever and ever and ever, right? The job is never done. So what would you like to leave people with? What's your homework assignment for people?
My homework assignment for people is to start having conversations. The election will be here in a couple of weeks, and we need to have a conversation. I believe that people need to know what we have moving forward, how this will impact not just them as young people, but today, their parents, and what this will look like for them when they get older. Because, policies that's made today will affect them later on. So I suggest that they get involved, get educated, find out what's happening, what's on the ballot, how this will affect and impact their lives for the future and their children's children.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there not paying attention. So congregations and people of faith having conversations with folks is really important. And I think that's a good word for today. Mattie, this was your first time on a podcast. You felt okay? We did all right?
I felt okay.
All right. Well,
I did all right.
you were great. I appreciate you, and thanks for taking the time today. And thanks for the work you and your congregation are doing.
And thank you for having me today. Thank you.
Joining us for the conversation is Cathy Reinhold, area missioner of the Galveston Convocation of the Episcopal Diocese of Texas. She's working with St. Augustine of Hippo Episcopal Church on this project. Cathy, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, I'm glad to be here. Quite honored. Thank you.
Well, I am excited you're here, and I'm excited because we want to hear all about your project and how you're working to engage folks in the civic engagement work. So talk to us about the project your congregation chose. Tell us a little bit about it and why y'all chose that project.
Yeah, so St. Aug's, as we call it, St. Aug's is a pretty little church in Galveston, historical Black church. And so they've had this program called Seaside Seniors going for quite a while. And they rotated amongst 5 other churches. And so every Thursday, people come together and have lunch. And so we targeted this group mostly because we felt like they were vulnerable and maybe needed some support. And so we are targeting them. We have a big presentation tomorrow that we'll be presenting about this, ready vote thing that we're doing. And we have door knockers we put out, and it's just been such a great project. It's all new for me, experiment, and absolutely love getting involved with the community.
Yeah, so talk about what you're doing. You're hanging door flyer. Like talk to us about the specifics of what y'all are working on.
Yeah, so last weekend we put out 5,000 door knockers, and we're going to follow up with that tomorrow to see who shows up because we invited them to lunch. We're buying lunch, and that's. One of my big things is we sent out 5,000 and how many are going to show up. So we'll see tomorrow. And then we're doing a follow-up we have a little flyer to hand them, even if they don't get in to get lunch and we have to turn them away, which would be a good thing in my mind. We will invite them to the next event, which is on the 29th. We're going to celebrate early voting, and we're going to have pizza and cookies and soda and just have a fun time gathering together, because so much of this to me is building community and getting the education out.
Yeah, I mean, I like lunch. I might need to be coming to Galveston tomorrow. Talk to us about, so at the lunch, what's the hope that you're confirming the registered vote, you're encouraging them to vote? What's the program look like?
Yeah, the program does encourage them to know what they don't know. And that's part of the secret is they think they know things. And so we're presenting them with education of where to vote, the timelines, and whatever else they may know or want to know, I should say, because Corley Jackson is very active in that area, and she's my partner in crime. So she can answer all those questions in that area. So
love that. She is definitely a resource. Any good conversations with folks as y'all are distributing the flyers, as you're inviting people in? Anything that stands out to you?
I think the biggest conversation we have is gratitude for the education and also for the volunteers that are going to be doing this work, because we are going to follow up on those door knockers within the next 2 weeks before the early voting. So, lots of volunteer effort and people giving their time to bring education and I'd say support or help to vulnerable or unknown people, that they don't know what's going on.
Well, you all are certainly doing some great work in the Galveston area. We've got listeners from throughout the state. Any challenge you want to leave with them as we move into early voting and even past Election Day?
Yeah, I think that the challenge is just to know that we're not here to promote anyone. We're just here to help spread the good news and connect the faith part of it, because I believe it is our social justice mission that is going to make a difference of bringing us together.
And that togetherness is important. I mean, you're the third of these conversations that I've had. And we've been talking, obviously, with people who are involved in Houston Faith Votes for months now. It is important that we get out and talk with our community. So any reflections on kind of what y'all have gone through on that end over the course of the last few months and why that's an important part of the process for people of faith?
Yeah, again, Lee is doing a lot of on the ground stuff. I'm kind of behind the scenes and at this small little church, and with the other churches, I did speak about it in the pulpit because I am a lay minister. So it's brought me an opportunity to, again, educate. I'm a teacher of many, many years. So it's really about seeing what happens and what they say today. You know, some of the conversations at the luncheons have been simply around keeping it straight up and not taking a side. You know, and that's really hard for some people. So that's a challenge, you know. It's not for me because I'm not either way. I'm just here to help you educate in faith and walk in what works.
It's good to bring people together. And so I really appreciate the work that you and the team in Galveston are doing. And I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us about it today. Thanks a lot, Cathy.
Yeah, thanks, Scott.
Joining us for today's conversation is Juanita Jackson, who is helping coordinate Trinity East United Methodist Church's Houston Faith Votes project for that congregation. Juanita, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me.
I'm asking all the folks who are joining us today to basically describe the project that your congregation's working on and why you chose to participate in that project.
Well, first of all, we've got 9 members who volunteered to assist in this project. And our pastor had the vision of our trying to get people registered to vote and then out to vote and ask for some volunteers to assist. So 9 of us stepped up. And some of the things that we're doing, we have a food pantry. And so we have partnered with our food pantry on 2 occasions. For those persons who were standing in line waiting on food, we'd walk to their car, introduce ourselves, and ask if they were registered to vote. If they said no, we had the application available for them to complete and sign, and we turned it in. We did that on 2 occasions. I'm not sure what the total number is, but the coordinator is going to give me that on Saturday. We've also set up voter registration tables in our fellowship hall so that people could come by after service. And if they were not registered to vote, they could sign up. And we also were checking, we had a couple of young adults who had their laptops, and they were checking to see if people were in the system because we had received word that some persons had been purged. And we certainly didn't want someone getting to the polls thinking that they were registered and found out they were not. And we did find a couple of people who had been apparently purged from the system and was able to get them registered. We also planned a day at Texas Southern University where we actually went on campus when the students were newly back at school for a welcome back celebration. And there were over 200 students who actually came to that event. Many of them were already registered, but there were a few who were not. But they did ask questions. We had some handouts and all of that. So we're really working it to make sure as many people are registered as possible. Of course, we ordered T-shirts with our church name on the front and on the back saying, vote, it matters. And so we're in T-shirts, so we're easily identified when we are at the different sessions. We also contacted a person who works for the League of Women Voters, and she came out and did a presentation for us one Sunday and offered a lot of valuable information and provided some handouts. So we've got signs everywhere. We've had many handouts available, and have tried to answer as many questions as possible. And we're wanting to do this as a community service.
I love all of that. I'm curious, you're out there with your church T-shirts, you're engaging with people in your community, in the congregation, and at the university. How have you been received? Anybody surprised to see church folks out there doing that work?
No, actually, they were very welcoming and answered our questions, didn't have any issues whatsoever.
Yeah. Any good interactions with folks that kind of stood out to you?
We did. As a matter of fact, we also have a 4th Saturday brunch at our church for the community. Our church is nestled into a regentrification area where townhouses are just popping up everywhere. And so we've been sending out emails, and we have a large marquee in the front of our church inviting people to come and just fellowship with us. Just this past Saturday, we had about 30 people to show up, and very well received. And a couple of persons said, "Hey, I'd like to come and visit your church." And so we gave them the information, and guess what? They were there on Sunday.
How about that?
So we're not asking them to join our church. We're simply saying we're in the community. We've been in the community 116 years, and many of you are moving into the community and the condos and all of that. And we just want you to know that we're here. Not that we're inviting them to join our church, but just to know that the church is here in case they need it. And so that's our start with them.
Absolutely. Love that. So by the time folks listen to this, it'll be a couple of days from early voting, or maybe even early voting will have started in Texas. So kind of late to be starting a big new project. But we have a bunch of folks who are listening who I know are interested in public policy in Texas. What's your short-term, long-term homework? What do you hope folks will do over the course of the next few weeks? And what do you hope folks will do as we move past election season into what comes next?
First of all, we just hope people will go out and vote.
Amen.
Vote their conscience. Just vote. Exercise that right to vote. And my hope is that our team will stay in place so that for future elections, we will do the same thing. And not necessarily the presidential election, but those mid-year elections.
Every election. Well, Juanita, thank you so much for taking the time today, and really appreciate the work you and our friends at Trinity East United Methodist Church are doing. Thanks again.
You're welcome.
I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation with Mattie, Juanita, and Cathy, and I hope you're joining them and finding some fun ways to reach out to friends and neighbors in the coming weeks to invite them to join you in voting. Y'all, now is the time. Make a plan to vote, put it on your calendar, and invite some friends and low-propensity voters to join you. As a reminder, Texas Impact has tools for you to encourage civic engagement, to help folks check their ballots, to make a plan to vote, and so much more. In addition to opportunities to join teams where you can connect with other Texans from throughout the state who care about the issues you care about. Check out the website at texasimpact.org to join a team and to learn about other opportunities. Again, special plug again for the Texas Faith Votes resources. While you're there, I hope you'll take a moment to sign up to be a member of Texas Impact. Your membership supports this podcast and all of the work to engage Texans of faith to advocate for a more just and equitable Texas. If you have questions about any of it, please reach out. You can reach me at scott@texasimpact.org. And with that, I think it's time to close out this episode. So remember, the world needs Texans of faith active and engaged. So let's get to work.
Weekly Witness is hosted by Scott Atnett, engineered and produced by David Fasalo. Our executive producer is B. Moorhead. The opinions expressed on Weekly Witness are those of Texas Impact and our guests, and do not necessarily reflect the views of our sponsors. Weekly Witness is a product of Texas Impact, people of faith working for justice. Visit us online at texasimpact.org.